All right, Mark, let's talk about this topic from your recent newsletter. Tenants can legally pay a full year's rent up front.
This is very interesting. You see, under our own Ontario Residential Tenancies Act, it seems pretty clear that the most you can pay rent in advance to a landlord is first and last month's rent. That's been the case for many years. For example, a lot of landlords ask for this thing called a security deposit, which is not legal in Ontario law.
Yet it's still done.
So here we have a case where this woman comes from the UK. She finds a house in Mississauga. They're asking for $7,500 a month rent. And the landlord's worried about her credit. She has no connection here. P.S. She pays $90,000 in advance, 12 months rent. Plus, the landlord says he wants a security deposit of $7,500. She pays that as well. So everybody's saying this is against the law. She goes to court. She wants her money back. She finds out the law. She wants her money back. So the landlord says, wait a minute. She offered me 12 months rent. Well, when you think about it, what difference does it make? She offers, she doesn't offer. P.S. The judge found that the tenant offered 12 months rent. And so the judge said, because she offered it, it's legal. If it had been required by the landlord,
wouldn't have been legal.
Not legal. So this has just shaken up the whole industry, because now let's think about this. If you're a recent immigrant, very hard to get an apartment because you can't pass credit. You have no credit. Now you'll be able to offer 4, 6, 8 months rent in advance. And for me, if I'm a landlord, that's good enough as a security. And now the landlord knows he can accept it if it's offered. Now, let's say we have all these pet problems. Landlords don't want to let in tenants because they have pets. It's going to cause problems and you can't ask for a deposit. Well, what if a tenant says, look, I have a dog, but how about if I offer you a deposit so that if the dog does any damages, you got money to correct it at the end of the lease if I don't do it. So if I'm a landlord, I'll accept that. So you see, this is going to change the way people negotiate leases. But in that case, the judge did say the landlord required the security deposit. That's not legal. You have to give that back.
Okay.
So you see, there are lessons here for the listeners and for landlords. Don't ask, but you could be persuaded to accept.
It's all about interpretation, isn't it? But I think what's also really important here is to talk about how that case has set a precedence.
Oh, this is a big precedent. Like, there are a lot of tenant people that are very upset about this case, but the key is this case was decided by 3 judges of the Ontario court. This was not a landlord and tenant board decision. This is way above that. So this is the precedent, not there. So it's very good law.
So, Mark, talk about the security deposit thing. Why does that still get attempted?
People want to have some extra, because a lot of landlords think that if a tenant damages something, they should have the right to grab some money and fix it. So you broke the window, I'm taking this money and I'm going to fix it. But it's really not legal under the Act. But what I'm saying is if the tenant offers you money, then why not?
Talk about the importance of first and last then.
Well, again, first and last is just, you got to have it before you allow a tenant to move in, because you got to have some assurance. Too many times people say, okay, I'll give you a month, I'll pay you the rest later. And then you never see it. And, if you let a tenant in, and let me start by saying 95% of all tenants out there are excellent.
Excellent, right.
I don't want to talk negatively because they're
absolutely.
great. They're
Yep.
partners. They help your investment. But for those few, the problems, it can take you 6 to 8 months to get them out, even if they just give you 1 month rent and then they can't find it. So this is why you got to have at least first and last as some security. And not only that, you've got to do proper checks, background checks, speak to former landlords, credit checks before you permit someone to rent from you.
Or, if you can, go visit them wherever they currently live.
No, that's a great subject. I also say, check them out on social media. People say, how do we know he has a pet? Go on Facebook. If he's got a pet, there'll be a picture of him with a pet on Facebook.
We can't resist, can we?
Okay.
Oh, Mark Weisleder, you make this so much fun. And of course, it's so educational and informative for our listeners. And I learn something every time you come into studio. Thank you so much.
It's my pleasure. Thank you, Erin.